So a few months back I made a video discussing some common problems with the Saab 9.3, specifically the B207R motor. I got a lot of feedback on that, and a lot of you wanted to see a video on the 9.5. So here we are today. I have our 2004 9.5 Aero right here just as a backdrop, I guess you could say. And I want to give a little backstory on the 9.5. So the 9.5 was in production from 1999 until 2011. For this video, I'm going to be focusing on mostly the first, second, and third iterations of the 9.5, which spanned from the late 90s up until the year 2009. Now, the most common motor in the 9.5, and the motor that was pretty much used exclusively in the 9.5, is this right here, the B235R. This is a 2.3 liter turbocharged motor. And outside the 9.5, really the only other car that Saab used it in was the 9.3 Viggen. So if you've got a Viggen, then I guess this video applies to you as well. So before I get into this list, I do want to say that the 9.5, especially the B235 motor, is still very reliable. Now, I'm going to be talking about specific issues with it, but don't let that change your perspective on Saabs or how you look at 9.5s or anything in general, because they are still incredibly reliable cars. I mean, we've got a 9.5 wagon that has just under 250,000 miles on it. And one more thing before we start. I do have more news on my car. Today's currently Friday, and it was just picked up from Massachusetts. If you guys would like to see more live updates on where it is and the progress it's making as it comes all the way out here to Arizona, make sure to follow me on Instagram at auto.autopsy. I'll be posting updates as I get them. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into this video. Now, the first problem that I have really seen, and the most common problem I think, is probably misfiring. Now, the B235 has what's called a DIC, which is a direct ignition cassette, and basically that is the 4 coil packs all in one big piece. I actually have one sitting right here because we just had to replace it on this car. But as you can see, there are the 4 packs right here, and these go bad rather often on these cars, so it's always good to have a spare one laying around. Now, of course, with a misfire, 9 times out of 10, you can drive the car with a misfire, especially if it's just the DIC or a spark plug. Of course, is it the best for the car? No. Should you get fixed? Yes. But it's not a huge, significant problem that's going to mean that your engine's going to blow up or your 9.5 is going to strand you on the side of the road. So another common problem on these cars is sludge. Now, this car specifically is not affected by sludge. When I say sludge, I mean the first generation 9.5s, which was the 99 to 2002 or 2003. Saab, the PCV system in those older 9.5s was not very good, and that eventually led to oil sludge if you didn't keep up on maintenance. So if you were not on top of oil changes and whatnot, and you have a first generation 9.5, if you've experienced sludge, then you know what I'm talking about. It's not good, and it can be very bad for the engine. But like I said, anything past the model year 2003 is fine, so you don't have to worry about sludge if you got anything newer. The third common problem with the 9.5 is the blend door arm. So if you notice the HVAC system on your 9.5 starting to act up, that could very well be the cause. Now, there are a number of tests that you can do to check exactly what's wrong with it, but chances are that might be it. Now, the blend door arm is not a terribly expensive part, but it can be a bit of a pain to replace. And it's just something to look out for, especially if you live in a hotter climate like me, where I'm just standing in the garage and I am sweating, and not having AC can be a pain in the ass. So the fourth common problem with these 9.5s are the motor mounts. Now, these engines do put out a good amount of power and torque from factory. The Aero variant that this car is, I believe it's about 250 horsepower and a bit more torque. So over time, especially as these cars age and the motor mounts age, that can start to put a lot of strain on the engine. And if you're someone who likes to drive your car hard, where you're accelerating and coming off the throttle and the engine shifting back and forth a lot, that can accelerate this problem even more. So kind of on a related note, the transmission mounts, especially if you've got a manual transmission 9.5, can also go bad. But of course, engine mounts are just a thing that go bad over time on any car, really. I mean, it's just the rubber and everything can just only hold up for so long before it eventually starts to give. So the fifth common problem on the B235 is the crankshaft position sensor. So basically what the CPS does is it detects the position of the crankshaft so that the ECU knows where it needs to fire the fuel or when it needs to fire the fuel injectors and the spark plugs. So one of the main reasons why this can fail is because it's bolted directly to the engine. So the heat from the engine is not good for that. So being bolted directly to the engine is not good. I don't know why Saab necessarily did that, because it means that it's just going to heat up a lot more, and that of course can lead to problems with it and it needing to be replaced. So of course if your 9.5 does overheat, that could be catastrophic for many reasons, but one of the main things that can go wrong is that CPS. So definitely look out for that. Next up is window rollers. Now, the window rollers are something that are a pain in the ass to a lot of Saab owners, whether you have a 9.5, a 9.3, 900, whatever it may be. They just seem to kind of be one of those things that always breaks. And not just on Saabs, on a lot of other cars, as I've learned through doing my used cars you should never buy series. But the window rollers on the 9.5 are no exception. Now, these can be found very cheap. I had to do one on my 9.3, and I got one at a junkyard for a motor and everything for maybe 10 or 15 bucks. And it was a bit of a pain in the ass to replace because you got to take off the door panel, make sure everything's aligned properly. But it can be done by yourself. Next up is the coolant bypass valve. Now, if you live in a colder climate, especially, you might have already had to deal with this problem with your 9.5. So basically what the coolant bypass valve does is it takes coolant from the engine cooling system, puts it into the cabin and through the heater core, and that helps produce heat for whether it be your AC or your HVAC, I should say, or the motor, or whatever it needs the heat for. So if that does fail, it can lead to a bunch of problems with your cooling system as a whole. So it's recommended to do it preemptively before something happens. So that's just something that you might want to check. If you either have a 9.5 or you're looking to buy one, you should check if that's been done. So next up is the fuel pump. Now the fuel pump on these cars, as I've read online, as I've kind of heard from others, is something that can just fail over time. It's something that, you got to be prepared to replace on these cars. If the fuel pump does go bad, chances are it will leave you stranded somewhere. So if you do have the chance, check to see if it's been done on your 9.5, or just do it preemptively so that way you don't get stuck somewhere. So with that being said, guys, that's going to wrap up the video. There are 8 common problems with the Saab 9.5. For you 9.5 owners out there, please leave any more common problems that you have experienced yourself down below in the comments. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Follow me on Instagram for more live updates on my new car. Hopefully it'll be here. It should be here within a week of this video going up, and as soon as it gets here, I'll be working on that reveal video. I feel so bad for just posting that video and then not telling you guys what I got, because my plan was to upload the reveal video right after, but things don't always go to plan. So fingers crossed it'll be here as soon as possible and I can get that reveal video done and I can just finally drive it again. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next video.